Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really looking forward to chatting. For people who don't know you, could you just give us a very brief intro about who you are?
Yeah, hi. My name is Jill Josephson. I have a background of 20 plus years in marketing, predominantly in the retail and home furnishing space, but was introduced to home improvement in 2019.
Amazing. And could you give us a bit more information about the business that you're currently at?
Yeah, sure. I joined Long Home 18 months ago. They are a home improvement company that services the East Coast in 16 markets. And the products we carry are bathroom remodel, roof, and siding. So it's been a really fun ride. Long is the first company that I've worked with that really has a very established home improvement company that I've worked with that has a really established legacy. Which leads into building a brand.
Yeah. And I think that's something which, speaking about privacy, but I think let's start with that because I think it's so interesting. The thing that we spoke about was the fact that there isn't a Ferrari or a appealing brand in the kind of home services or home building space. You know, if you want a luxury bag, people think of a Prada, people think of a Gucci. Yeah. If you want a really nice car, people think of a Porsche, a BMW. But you don't really have that in your industry at the moment. Could you tell us a bit more about?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. If the average homeowner has no idea, if you asked them, put your roof on, who installed your siding, what kind of bathroom is that? There's no brand recollection or allegiance, right? Yeah. And for a large purchase, and like you said, if you're going to go shop cars and you're thinking, I'm going to do a luxury car, and know you'll have your brands. I'm going to go to Porsche. I'm going to go to Mercedes. But with a large purchase like this, there's no brand allegiance. And so that's what really attracted me to Long, because they do have that history. We have a little sign, a Long Home sign that's blue, and they have that. It has this longevity, it has this history, especially in our home market. And so it was a great opportunity to tap into that and build it. So much of this industry is, what are we going to do to get a lead today? And nobody thinks about that gap, that long game. And so I think that's what becomes the differentiator in this business and industry.
100%. And also, it's anecdotally, when I think of houses, one of the only brands I know is the Hoff House, which is a startup, and I think the reason, and I was trying to wrap my brain for this call thinking, what other houses or home building things? And I know it's just the one. And I think the reason they work so well is because they have a very clear narrative. They're very clear on, it's just kind of already almost pre-assembled house, really nice luxury, open space, and it just gets dropped on. But there's not really the equivalent of that. There's been no, almost, it feels like there hasn't been really an attempt to make homes or housing a bit sexier or slightly different than, okay, we're just going to build a house and here's a flyer with what the house looks like. So could you tell us how you're balancing you've got the sales team and you've got people going, we need short-term leads, let's buy a bunch of leads. Sure. And then also, how do you make people go, I want a home from Long Home?
From Long Home, right. So first of all, I don't think of my budget branded versus third-party unbranded leads as two separate entities or competing entities. You need both you need both. You have to generate both. I think of them as just two different sources or campaigns on different clocks, essentially. One is giving you a lead for tomorrow, and the other one is giving you a lead 1 month, 2 months, 3 months later. And they're coming in because they know Long Home. But regardless of how that lead comes in, they're still going to get the brand differentiator, what we bring to the table. We essentially sell trust, right? That's what we do. And the product that comes out of that trust is what you install, whether it's a roof siding or bathroom.
And how, in terms of your marketing mix and like how you spend the advertising budget, obviously you mentioned that you don't separate it out in terms of like almost the brand versus the short-term leads. Like, how are you spending your money and kind of what is working at the moment for you guys?
Sure. Well, it's really quite interesting is we spend about 60% of our marketing is in unbranded leads. It's not where we want to be ultimately, but that's where we are. 40% are branded leads. What happens when those convert through the funnel is the unbranded leads double when they get to issue.
Yeah.
And the unbranded have the inverse effect. So it really shows you what the future of, what you're trying to build. It's the proof point of, what, we're going to have higher issue rates, higher close rates with the more branded leads that we bring in. So the ultimate goal is to be a brand first company.
And you mentioned, okay, that 60-40 split, and the ones in the kind of 40 camp convert a much higher rate because you've got that kind of branded trust. What are you kind of doing to make the 60-40 maybe, 50-50 and then ultimately maybe a 30-70?
Yeah. So, you know what? It has to come from each market. What's driving? I mean, we're still in a performance-based business. So we have to be very careful on, really optimizing, understanding what levers to push. I do believe brand is our moat. Like that's where we're headed. But yet, you know what? If there is an unbranded source that's working, I'm not going to pull back. I'm going to go full throttle, right? But I'm constantly pulling those levers.
And on the unbranded side, can you give us a more detailed breakdown of like what that means? What does actually unbranded leads for you guys actually mean?
Unbranded is third-party affiliates. Does that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so third-party affiliates. And then all our branded really is, when we consider branded, we do consider paid search. We consider our organic strategy, our paid search strategy, our paid social. Anybody that goes to market, because we have third-party vendors that go to market in our name. Anybody that goes to market in our name is a branded effort. So we're constantly pushing those buttons of, I can scale this. This branded campaign is really working. This paid search campaign is really working. Let's put dollars in that and pull back dollars from the unbranded campaign.
And looking at more, maybe specifically some of the campaigns that you guys are running at the moment, what are some specific examples of campaigns in those? You mentioned 16 markets, correct?
Yeah.
In some of those 16 markets that are really working that you kind of want to share with us.
Sure. Surprisingly, in our industry, email is not dead. We have a really robust email marketing program that works extremely well in all our markets. Paid social in all our markets is in our own branded paid social is probably our number one performing campaign. And of course, with that, as you know, you have we have over 100 different ad sets. And but the great thing about what we're doing, which is a little bit different than maybe some other companies, is when we do those ad sets are going in 100% branded. We're using our spokesperson. She may be saying something different in one versus the other to do some A/B testing, but it's our spokesperson. It's our brand differentiator. It's ours, the trust signals. So we're really staying true to what we represent as a company.
And some of those ad sets, what is one specific example of an ad set that is working really well for you guys?
Well, we do this one where we have Katie, who's our spokesperson, and she speaks locally to, a city or a town or whatever, St. Augustine, kind of creative. And that local connection is what really stems action. It drives that personal touch. I mean, look, we're being invited into people's homes, so you have to address the emotional level of that,
And on that kind of personalized side, I assume that obviously you've got 16 different markets, and each market is slightly different, whether it's culturally or the way people, and as a result, the way people like to communicate and the messages that works in different markets. What is a message which you thought would resonate in one of those markets, and then turned out actually it didn't land because of maybe the cultural nuance or something that was very specific to that market? I'd be super interested. For example, I was speaking to a home service company earlier today, and for them, they have 6 markets and 5 are working really well. One that it's kind of difficult for them and they don't really know why is Indiana. They don't know why, but Indiana, there's something about it, and I'd be interested. Are there any examples like that for you guys within your markets?
So it's really, Yes, there are. It's really interesting. We did a lot of work. We've done a lot of work on profiles and understanding who our core customer is. And in one of our markets, um, we missed a whole segment, right?
Yeah.
We knew that we have a segment that is military and veteran base, right? And when we went to market, it was in Jacksonville, Florida. When we went to market, we had them in our mix, but we missed that messaging directly to them. To that segment. And it's really interesting that, they have the same profile, almost makeup of somebody that is in our core market, which is like 65 plus, but their reasons for purchasing are different. And so when we went to market with our core profile, and just, with our brand first approach, there's a huge military community there. And even though we had this profile built into our data, we missed it, but we quickly rectified that.
I think your point there is, I think so many marketing teams can resonate with that, because to understand the different profile nuances and then to kind of react to that on the fly is very difficult, especially when you've got a load of data at scale. And I think that's especially where AI is super, super helpful, because, even if you're very good at maths, it's impossible to almost kind of calculate or imagine how these different profiles will react or calculate what message, as you mentioned. It would have been great to know that the military messaging would have probably worked really well for that market, but that might have been missed maybe due to kind of a human error, or maybe not even a thought of that could work in that specific market. And I think that's where AI can be super helpful. Could you kind of help us understand like how you're thinking about AI within your marketing team, and then AI within marketing more generally?
Yeah. So within our team, Claude's my best friend. So within our team, we're building out a brand brain so we don't make those mistakes. We don't miss that again. And it'll be a single source of truth for our brand, where the team can, and they're already starting to do it a little bit, so they can start just like fact checking. AI is a great assistant, so it makes us faster. It's a fantastic assistant for checks and balances. So we're using it as a brand brain. Throughout the process, we are using AI, whether it's call center Q&A. We have voice AI that helps us after hours. So, we do have a marketing mixes, and our approach is, meet them where they're at. So if they're up at 2 a.m. and they're filling out a form, or they want to call us, we want to make sure someone can pick up the phone. So we have voice AI, and they set great appointments. We use
and
it.
Out of curiosity, sorry, what's the, maybe for people listening, I'm assuming what you mean is, let's say that your kind of sales reps have gone home and you get a kind of form filled in, and then, maybe they call in, then you've got an AI agent that can handle those conversations.
Correct.
And like, what is the success rate of the AI voice agent compared to a human? Like, how does that differ?
It's equal.
It's equal.
If not
Okay.
Better.
Amazing.
If not better.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Amazing.
Yeah. And then we have the same thing for SMS. So if they fill out a form after hours, we'll use an AI SMS message back that takes them through the whole entire journey and qualifies them right through text and books the appointment.
And I think the interesting kind of continuation from that point is, if we're saying, and from what you've said in terms of the data on your side, where the voice agent is booking at the same rate as a human, if not better, and the SMS is the same as well, pretty much.
Right.
It kind of makes you go, okay, brilliant, because so many of these marketing workflows we can automate with AI, but then also, what are the things then which the human can still do better than the AI? And I think that's the really exciting space for marketers, where, you maybe have to be a bit more creative, something that, linking together things which the AI would have isn't smart enough to do, and it would have no kind of innate human taste for. So a kind of more general question for you is, what are those types of things which you think that the human marketer is still doing better than the AI?
You know what? I really do think the overall thought process, the initiation of of whatever campaign or brand you're trying to build there, I feel like, when you start to build a brand, you still need that human contact, those key stakeholders to help you, those conversations. And then you can take your learnings, and then put it into AI. That's where I feel like you still need that one-to-one. The human has to be the thought starter.
100%. I think that's a really nice. For me, it feels a bit like you've seen The Odyssey by Christopher Nolan.
Yep.
Yeah, it feels a bit like, the human in this scenario is Christopher Nolan, where they have these amazing thoughts and visions, and they're really the director, and they're going to steer the ship. But then all the kind of people, on the production, film crew, all that kind of stuff, those can represent the mini AI agents that go and carry out some of the admin and logistics needed to recreate his vision. And I think that balance is kind of the same thing with marketing that we're seeing at the moment.
Yep.
Would you agree? Do you think that's fair?
I 100% agree. 100% agree. Yeah.
And now, so you've been there 18 months-ish. One of the things I always, it's very different from when you're actually in seat in a company to when you're looking at it from the outside. Some things which you thought might be true maybe aren't, and vice versa. So we're kind of interested to hear from you. What are the things which you have really shocked you in the first 18 months joining, and you've learned about kind of this new industry where you thought, I wasn't expecting that?
Not much shocks me anymore.
You've seen it all.
I have seen so much. And you know what? The interesting thing about home improvement is it changes so quickly.
Yeah.
So quickly.
Tell us about some of those changes.
Oh gosh. Well, a lot of it is based on the economy, right? So, when people are, if they're scared to spend, it's okay. How do you dig in and really, try, convince them to make a major purchase?
Yeah. When they have their money.
When they have their money versus where we were post-COVID, which I hate even bringing up, but I didn't have to do anything. People were just, they were just, because they were sitting at home, right? So it's just really interesting how just the outside world can affect, what's going on in the economy. It can affect this industry so much, especially I guess that's with any large purchase, but it really does affect the home improvement business. The other thing that I find really interesting about this business is demand for product ebbs and flows. And it's okay. So now it's you carry that product and it's on a downturn. What are you going to do? What do? You have to change your marketing mix. Maybe if you have to go to market, you have to think of a different way to go to market to get people interested again. So it's really about being very nimble and just being able to, pull on all your resources.
And what would be an example of you responding in a nimble manner in the first 18 months that you've been there?
I think, one of the things that that we're always in this industry being nimble on is we have, capacity. So, our budgets are set for the full year. But you know what, you get in month and you're constantly pushing and pulling. And then your sales team, some people get sick, some people decide to leave the company, and all of a sudden your sales team of 15 is 9, and you constantly being nimble enough to pull back the budget so you're not wasting your spend. But you have sales goals, you have net sales goals that you have to reach. So you're moving the budget to another market that can handle the capacity. So those are the constant tugs and pulls and tugs that we deal with on a daily basis.
No, 100%. And I think also, it's especially hard to your points around the economy and that flexing, and when the consumers can't, they're not thinking about building or buying a new roof when they can't even afford a meal.
Right.
Or a luxury bag, whatever it might be.
Right.
Anyway, the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about as well was the examples of like marketing campaigns which you're kind of doing over the next 3 to 6 months to help push you guys more towards that Volkswagen of the home service, home building space? Because I love your thesis about how do we become the Volkswagen in the home service market. So I'd love your thoughts on how you're doing that practically.
So we're long home since we've been in industry for such a long time, and we have a wealth of first party data. And so we're really tapping into that first party data and doing some interesting campaigns and building new models and audiences off of those campaigns with referral campaigns, previous customer campaigns, win back campaigns. So maybe people who have come into our funnel but never converted. And overall, we're just using that data, our own data, to drive demand and conversion.
And are there any, I guess what I'm getting at is, interesting, are there any like specific examples of campaigns? For example, it could be, I was speaking to a company only about 3 weeks ago, and they're now going to record street interviews in San Francisco for organic social to help drive more people for kind of for recruitment. That would be one quite specific example.
Right.
Maybe there are those types of more specific examples that you guys are doing, whether it's in organic social, whether it's in paid, or it could be with CRM. Are there any of those that maybe come to mind?
So those are all CRM that we're doing. You know what, Noah? We're 1 year into our brand refresh. So I'm maintaining I'm going to stay on course. I'm going to stay on path.
Yeah.
I want to be a company that, through the consideration phase, we're selling trust, and what you get out of it is the product. So when we did our brand refresh, we created a whole strategy of how we're going to go to market with the brand. I'm just coming up on 12 months of it. So I think the next step for us, which is really exciting, what we're about to enter, is a brand lift study. To see how we're measuring, how we're doing with that trust.
And also kind of, especially with something like, home improvement or building a new roof, it's not something that people kind of thinking about all the time. Often something will go wrong, and it's very often like a trigger purchase.
Yeah.
How do you market? Like, what's your buyer journey, and how do you look at things like those emotional triggers which make people go, oh, actually, I should, replace my roof or something like that?
Right. Well, I always laugh because I always say we need to make roofs sexy somehow. Yeah. I don't know how to do it.
So maybe better phrase, how are you making roofs sexy? Let's do that.
So the lights in my office just went off.
No, that's so good.
We launched siding about 8 months ago. Yeah. And so what we're doing is we are doing like a bundle and save message.
Okay. Yeah.
Because when people think about their when they think about their siding on their home, they're doing it for curb appeal, to get a whole new look at the same address. Well, what goes with siding? Well, your roof goes with siding.
Yeah.
We can't even install windows, so we can do the whole entire exterior. So that is one way we're trying to drive demand for roofs. Maybe the person doesn't need a new roof. Maybe the person still has 3 years on their roof, but at least they can, now do a bundle and save message, similar to which I always take from outside resources, but the insurance companies are really good at, bundling. Travel is really good at bundling. So, it's one tactic that we're going to be using, that we don't have to wait for people to leverage a trigger to get to do a roof purchase.
Oh, I love it. It reminds me, I think I was, maybe 3 weeks ago, I was in the supermarket in the UK, and maybe it was January, February. Anyway, we have Pancake Day in the UK where you make pancakes, etc. And they bundled, like a pancake starter kit, so you can get your golden syrup, your flour, all the things you need.
Yeah.
And I think those are, very simple, creative ways which you can make people go, actually, like, maybe I do need this, or I will get this because it's much easier for me to purchase the whole thing as a package.
Right. Right.
And to your point about making roofs sexy, I think often a large part of that, if we look at kind of like other industries, is using organic social to kind of retrain people or tell a new story about kind of more legacy style industries. How are you thinking about organic social and bringing that to an industry which is, quite a legacy style industry?
Yeah. So we have my team has done an amazing job with the content on their organic social sites. We have 3 pillars that we work to. We don't necessarily, and Katie, again, who is a 4th generation Long DePaula, is our face on the organic social. And she will run the gamut on we have, one pillar, it's just about home organization, right? Nothing to even do with putting on a new roof or, installing a new bathroom, but just we use it as she's a trust signal. We want our homeowners to feel like, this is the family that's going to be coming into your home. Let me give you some advice. And whether it's, about the bathroom or not about the bathroom, so we build that content. And our next pillar really talks about, just some of the things that you should watch out for. We're not trying to sell you a bath or a roof, but she'll talk with, a team member and just some things that to be a destination or a hub, so to speak, of what to look for, when to raise my hand and say, I need help, kind of thing with the products we carry. And then we do have our hardcore, promotional messaging.
Yeah, it's super nice. And I think also, especially so many of those work really well in a series. You can do home organization and then you can start with kitchen and you can go to bathroom stuff. Then, you know what I mean? And it's quite a nice, retention way to make sure people kind of keep watching, similar to kind of Netflix and their different series. And the other thing I want to talk about was you obviously come in with this goal to make Long Home more brand first. And that 60-40 split we mentioned at the start, kind of maybe to invert that. How do you go about internally selling that to the CEO and the board and kind of the owners? Like, how do you say to those guys, yes, aware that we have the short-term lead and kind of sales goals we need to hit, but also here are the benefits if we really invest into brand, and that will come to fruition maybe, 2-3 years down the line?
So I really didn't have a hard sell on that. That was very easy. My CEO wants to be a brand first company. So from that perspective, we really, I think if there's anything is that, brand does not happen overnight. It doesn't happen in 6 months. It doesn't happen in 12 months, right? It's the long game. It is the long game, no pun intended. That is probably the only frustration point, is because you want it to happen sooner. But I didn't have to convince them. We were, prior to me joining the organization, we were more third party or unbranded, but everybody internally really understands the legacy that we have here. And it was just a matter of pulling out those differentiators, organizing them, giving the brand metrics, and creating campaigns and, our messaging, to really, get it full circle and everybody on the same page.
And, it sounds like obviously clearly brand is really important and the leads close at a much higher rate. And what are the kind of some competitors in your market or other brands in your sector which you think do a really good job of brand, and why?
I think, I think Renewal by Anderson does a good job. And the reason why I think they do a good job is they know who their target audience is. They don't veer from it. They're very steady in their messaging. So I think from that perspective, they do a good job. I don't feel like anybody in our industry, especially in my neck of the woods, is really consistent in what their messaging is other than Renewal. There's just that huge gap.
And so it sounds like the reason Renewal are able to be so consistent is because they have a very specific, clear target persona and
Correct.
ICP.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the issue with a lot of home service companies, where they haven't been, or they're not as targeted with who they're actually speaking to?
100%. And I think that there's, we're all competing in the same ponds. so to speak, and we're all fishing in the same pond. And it's not identifying, what fish you're going after, right? What fish you're going after. So, and it feels a little bit like we're all shouting for the same person. And you really have to do the due diligence and understand who you're speaking to and understand who's coming into your funnel, and then go attract more people that fit that profile instead of being in the same pond with everybody else.
And the for Anderson, like, what is their specific ICP? And that's the kind of first part. And then the follow up to that is, it sounds like, the reason Anderson have done this well is because they have a very targeted persona or ICP that they're chasing.
Yeah.
And my question to you off that is, how have you been refining your target ICP to make sure that, like Anderson, you can then capture the very specific target market? Might be a bit smaller at first, but you then build very high trust and brand authority for those specific ICPs.
Sure. Well, first of all, data. The data tells you everything. We work with a partner who is continually scrubbing that data, looking at that data, labeling that data, feeding it back into our CRM so that we can see it. We can see, exactly who he or she is. And we know their triggers. We know what they're going to react to. We know what channels they're going to consume on. So we let the data tell us.
And what are some initial findings from that data about your ICP?
Really interesting that she's a little bit older than I would have expected, which was really, really interesting for us. She's about 65 plus, predominantly budget minded. And I was surprised about that because when I think of long, I don't think of long as from a budget perspective, but then I had to break that down and really think about, when we're talking budget, maybe, is that budget in her personal life? Like, she's very, 65, probably close to retirement, right? And thinking about how she's going to manage her total overall budget. But one thing that was interesting across all of the data was that they very much wanted the value. They wanted value, and value means, value in somebody they can trust. It doesn't necessarily mean price. They want somebody that's going to make them feel comfortable coming into their home, whether they live in a rural market or a suburban market. They want to trust who's coming into their home, and that's company that's going to be there, 10 years, 15 years if they have a problem. And that was consistent across all of the data.
And is that ICP, how does that ICP differ between those 16 markets?
So we have segments within that ICP, so that, like I said, in Jacksonville, it leads towards more of that midlife military or veteran, but the same triggers, the same mindset on budget and value. So that's how we've built our segmentation profiles. So it's interesting. It's really interesting. And then the other thing that I would say is, obviously, we go from Maine all the way down to Florida. And so cost of living is very different. So the biggest difference
in which
the cost of living is much higher in the Northeast than it is in Florida. So home values are much different.
And what's the impact you're seeing, in terms of the ICP on that?
Yeah. So the impact is, you'll see lower net lower sales average ticket prices in the South. You see, yeah.
That's, I think that's a
It's
good
very
point.
It's like they're really essentially the same. They may just do a wet area only in the South, where we'll sell just wet area only. In the Northeast, they might do a full bathroom, but that's not here nor there as far as, like, the persona itself is what the triggers are all the same.
Yeah, no. And I think the interesting part there is kind of knowing, okay, you might be different geographies and kind of, one might be a military cohort in Jacksonville and the other might be somewhere else, but actually the same kind of value, emotional led triggers don't really change. So I think is an interesting point.
I mean, like, because we do have people like, we have a rural segment, right? We have a rural segment, and they're, what triggers them is the same thing as this budget-minded person. We have a suburban striver segment, and it's, again, same budget-minded.
And now to kind of shift the conversation more to, super interested to hear, like, the boots on the ground feelings of you and your team about AI in marketing, because I think a lot of what we see on LinkedIn and X is sometimes different to what people say internally, kind of behind closed doors. So I'm interested to hear, like, how comfortable are your different team members with AI and how they're thinking about it?
I think this industry, I think the home improvement industry is a little bit behind on AI. But my team in general is really excited about it and has embraced it.
Yeah.
Especially when, especially with, finding new ways to show, our KPIs and our metrics.
Tell us more about that.
We do a business review every single week. And, we were sharing our metrics with the leadership team the same way for over a year. And we threw it into AI, and all of a sudden this light bulb went off of, well, that is much easier to see the progression of where we're going than what we were showing previously. So I think we're just touching the surface on it. My team is very willing to use it. They use it for creative, for versioning. So there's just so much opportunity, and I don't think we even, touched the surface on it.
100%. I think it's super exciting. Also, like, what the day of a modern marketer looks like as it shifts when you've got more and more AI tools which can help automate or make your life easier.
Right.
You can maybe go home earlier, or you can spend more time focusing on creative campaigns that you would like, that you wouldn't have been able to have the time to spend on because you were doing a spreadsheet or personalizing an email in the CRM. So no, I completely agree. And now kind of for this part, it'd be great to focus on some kind of quick fire questions about you, your marketing thoughts, etc. So the first question is, if you could be CMO at any company, apart from your own, obviously, which company would it be and why?
Gosh, Chewy.
How come?
The pet industry just fascinates me.
How come?
Because it just rose out of nowhere, right? In the last, like, 5 or 6 years, right? There was, like, people just didn't invest that way in their pets.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this whole entire, like, ecosystem has risen, and it's amazing what people will do. And I'm a pet lover. But what we'll do for our pets, and the amount of spend we will invest in our pets. So I think the pet industry is fascinating. Pet insurance, I would do any of it. I mean, it's just fascinating to me. It was a completely untapped market that, whoever really put money behind it was brilliant.
I also think it's a really interesting point because, it's exploded recently. But I think that, I wonder if you look at the kind of psychologically why, and I think that, probably social media is making people maybe spend more time on their phones, feel lonely. They want a pet or something to bond with. So maybe they get a dog or kind of an animal. And there's an interesting parallel there about people feeling lonelier, and actually dating apps and those kind of more experiences of separating people or forcing them online, and having something in your home which is a physical bonding partner
really good point.
is actually really nice. So no, it's a really interesting one.
Yeah.
And the kind of second one on there is like, what is something what is your marketing hot take in your industry? It's something that, if you're with a round table with other CMOs in your sector that you believe in, but you think a couple of them, or maybe half plus, would disagree with you on.
I would go back to branding being in this space. It is the gap that is going to, that somebody needs, it's somebody, and it's going to be long, that fills it, and I think that's where more home improvement companies can in the future, see success.
No, I mean, and I'm super excited to watch you guys and your brand journey. I think that I love I'm stealing your Volkswagen
You're
kind of
stealing
thesis.
my Volkswagen?
The Volkswagen thesis. I think it's very true, especially in your industry.
It's so true though.
Yeah.
Right?
It's very, very good. And the kind of some final questions. The first is, what is something that you wish that I had asked you that I haven't? Would love your thoughts on that. No worries. That's absolutely fine. And then second,
how about attribution? You didn't ask about how do you attribute brand versus unbranded.
Let's do that. How do you attribute brand versus unbranded?
So we have a branded, unbranded taxonomy in our CRM. So every single lead that comes in is marked branded or unbranded based on the source. And we can even see the journey, because often in our industry, a lead will come in 2-3 times before it converts.
Yeah.
So we're able to see, did it come in as unbranded first? Well, that unbranded, we didn't do the job and we didn't convert it today like we were supposed to. But then it'll come back in as a branded, and it's really quite interesting to watch their path.
And what is something interesting about that path for people?
Well, I find it very interesting that it's like homeowners, the psychology is amazing. Homeowners will fill out a form on an Angie's List, And
for people who don't know, what is Angie's List?
Angie, Modernize, Quinn Street. It's a third-party aggregator who will sell the lead to us, and maybe 3 different homeowners, 3 different home improvement companies will win the bid, and they'll go out and they'll pitch their product. And we see this over and over and over again, and we don't convert the lead, but then they will come back in under a branded channel, and that's when we convert the lead. So I think the psychology is really quite fascinating. It's almost like a homeowner is filling out a form just to learn more, but not really ready to pull the trigger. And then they're holding out, and then they raise their hand when they feel comfortable with one of the companies, right? So, and they'll come back in and fill out another form. So I think it's really quite interesting.
100%. And especially with something like, if you're purchasing a roof, it's not a Friday afternoon purchase over, after you've had lunch. I think it's, it's a lot of form filling, or you might kind of have to have a debate with your partner or family. So no, I think it's interesting. And I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, Jill, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was so lovely to chat to you. And we're looking forward to seeing you and your Volkswagen home service journey go on.
Thank you so much. No, I really appreciate it.